I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this. But here I am, sitting in my living room trying to piece together what the hell just happened. My wife, Jessica, has always been a little high maintenance, a bit bitchy at times, but I loved her, or at least I thought I did. We'd been married for 5 years and everything seemed fine on the surface. The dinners, the weekends away, the occasional fights that we'd always managed to smooth out. But lately, something felt off. She was more distant, kept brushing off my questions about her day, and she started disappearing more often without a good explanation. I figured she was just stressed with her job, which, come to think of it, was another thing. She was a literary agent, and she had this huge book launch coming up. Big deal for her, a lot of social events, signings, dinners. I knew she had been working late, but she also had this new attitude, snappy, dismissive when I tried to talk about her schedule. She'd roll her eyes at me or tell me I was imagining things. I let it slide because I didn't want to turn into that guy paranoid about every little thing. But then last week I started noticing weird stuff. Phone calls she'd hide from me, quick texts she'd delete if I walked in the room. I brushed it off as her usual bitchiness, but deep down I knew something was up. What finally broke me was the night I was trying to surprise her with a dinner reservation for her birthday. I had flowers, candles, the whole 9 yards. She was supposed to come home early. But instead I caught her sneaking out the back door as I was pulling into the driveway. She looked guilty, and I swear she was wearing a coat I'd never seen before. I called out to her, but she just waved me off and said she'd be back late for some meeting. Honestly, I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. It wasn't her usual late-night work thing. Over the next couple of days, I decided to follow her. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I needed to see the truth. So I staked out her favorite coffee shop and her usual spots. That's when I saw her, Jessica, with another guy, not just a guy, a tall, broad-shouldered guy who looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered. They weren't just talking, they were sneaking behind the bookstore during her book signing event. I remember watching through a security camera I managed to sneak a peek at on my phone. They were in the storage room, and from what I could tell, that's where the real cheating was happening. They kissed. I saw her hands all over him, and they weren't just talking about her latest book. That moment hit me like a freight train. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My first instinct was rage. How could she do this to me? After everything, she'd been lying and sneaking around right in front of my face. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so stupid to think we had a good life. I remember staring at the footage over and over, trying to process what my eyes were seeing. She had told me she was just busy with her job, that she was stressed. Yeah, she was stressed all right, stressed enough to cheat, to lie, to betray everything we built. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I had to plan my next move carefully. The moment I saw the footage, everything changed. I remember feeling this surge of cold shock running through my body. My hands trembled as I pressed play again, watching Jessica's face pressed against that guy's. What was his name? Mark, I think so. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so naive. All those nights I thought she was working late or at some stupid book event, she was in the storage room, kissing him, maybe more. And the way she looked, so confident, so dismissive, like she was just having some fun at my expense. I stayed up all night, replaying that footage over and over, trying to figure out how I never realized this was happening right under my nose. I kept asking myself, how could she lie to me for so long? How could she act like everything was okay? It was like a punch to the gut every time I saw her lips on him, her hands tangled in his hair, her body pressed against his. I felt betrayed, furious, and utterly lost. All the trust I had in her, in us, crumbled. That moment, I started thinking about all the times she dismissed my concerns, rolled her eyes when I asked where she'd been, or accused me of being paranoid. Turns out I was right. She'd been cheating on me with her damn literary agent right at her book launch events. How sick is that? The worst part was realizing she'd lied so convincingly. Every excuse she gave, every dismissive remark, every time I caught her in a lie, none of it was innocent. She'd been sneaking around, probably thinking she was so clever, so untouchable. She lied right to my face, and I had no idea. It made me question everything about our marriage. I started to wonder if I ever really knew her, or if I'd been living in some fantasy world where she was just a bitchy, demanding wife, not someone capable of this level of betrayal. I couldn't sleep after that. I kept going over the footage, replaying the moment I realized she was cheating. It was like a punch in the stomach every time. I felt a mix of anger and sadness, anger at her for doing this, and sadness because I truly did love her, or at least, I thought I did. I'd already started planning how I was going to confront her, but honestly, I didn't know what to say. How do you even begin to process something like this? How do you look someone in the eye who's been lying to you in the most gut-wrenching way possible? Next, I decided I had to confront her face to face, but I wasn't going to do it rashly. I knew I needed to be cool to keep my head. I wasn't about to let her spin her usual bullshit and walk all over me like she always did. I wanted her to face the reality of what she'd done. So I waited until she was back from one of her meetings. I set up my plan carefully, knowing I would catch her in her lie and then I'd see if she'd finally admit the truth. But deep down, I knew. Whatever I said, whatever she explained, nothing could undo what I'd seen. Nothing could take back that betrayal. I just hoped I'd be strong enough to handle whatever was coming. The day I decided to confront Jessica, I was a mess. My stomach was twisted in knots and I couldn't focus on anything else. I kept going over every detail, trying to prepare myself for her reaction. I knew she'd lie, deny, maybe even try to turn it around on me. That's what she always did, bitchy, dismissive, full of excuses. I didn't want that. I just wanted the truth, no matter how bad it was. She finally came home around 7 p.m. looking irritated as usual. The moment she stepped through the door, I knew this was it. I told her I needed to talk, and she rolled her eyes. "What now? You're always accusing me of something, just get to the point." That was her typical attitude, defensive, angry, dismissive, but I wasn't about to let her brush me off this time. I pulled out my phone, showed her the footage. I kept my voice steady, but inside I was boiling. "Tell me what this is, Jessica. Who is Mark? Why are you sneaking off during your book signings to be with him in the storage room?" Her face froze. For a split second, I thought she might burst into tears or try to deny everything. But then she straightened up, rolled her eyes again, and scoffed. "Oh, please, that's bullshit. You're just being paranoid. That's what you always do, accuse me without any proof." She was lying, I could see it in her eyes. She was trying to deny it all, but her voice was shaky, her tone defensive. She kept repeating lame excuses about how she was working late, how she was under a lot of stress, and that I was crazy for thinking she'd cheat on me. I lost my temper for a second. I told her I wasn't stupid. She had been caught, plain and simple. Her denial only made me angrier. I told her I saw her lips on him, that I saw her hands all over him, that she was in the storage room with Mark, kissing him. Her response was classic Jessica, blame-shifting, dismissive, trying to make it seem like I was overreacting. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You're just jealous because I've been too busy for your stupid insecurities. It's not my fault if some guy tries to get in my pants." That was her go-to, dismissing my feelings, twisting everything to make herself look like the victim. I felt like I was losing my mind. My heart was pounding so loud I thought everyone in the room could hear it. I was furious, but I also felt this deep sadness. I'd always believed in her, in us, and now it felt like that was all a lie. I told her I couldn't believe she'd do this after all the years we had together. I asked her why she'd even bother pretending to be the loving wife if she was just going to cheat behind my back. Her answer, the usual bitchy attitude. "Honestly, you're boring. You don't pay attention to me." Maybe if you weren't such a clueless idiot, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. That's when I realized she didn't care about me, about us. She thought she could get away with it all, lie her way out of everything and keep living her double life. I felt like I'd been punched again, only this time in the chest. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't breathe. I looked at her, standing there with that smug, dismissive look, and I knew this was the end of the line for us. I didn't say much after that. I just told her to pack her shit and leave. I didn't want her near me anymore. I needed time to process what had just happened, to figure out how I was going to move on from this nightmare. I spent the rest of the night trying to sleep, but it was impossible. My mind kept replaying her lies, her sneering face, the feel of her lips on him. I kept asking myself how I let it get this far, how I didn't see the signs earlier. I felt humiliated, broken, and furious all at once. And somehow, amidst all that chaos, I knew one thing. I would never forgive her. Not for this. Not ever. The next few days were a blur of emotions I couldn't quite control. I felt humiliated, angry, betrayed, pretty much everything you'd expect. It was like my world had been turned upside down overnight. I kept replaying those footage clips in my head, trying to make sense of how she could do this to me, to us. Jessica always had this bitchy attitude, but I never imagined she'd be capable of this level of betrayal. Honestly, I was furious. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I was so blind to what she was doing behind my back. I remember the moment I finally decided I wasn't going to sit around and let her manipulate me anymore. I went straight to a divorce lawyer. I wanted out. I needed to get away from her toxic attitude and that slimy guy she was cheating with. I didn't care about the money, the house, or whatever she tried to throw my way. All I knew was that I couldn't stay married to someone who lied and cheated on me in the worst way possible. The lawyer told me I had grounds and that I should start gathering evidence. I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because I finally knew the truth, but dread because I knew this was only the beginning of a long, ugly battle. I also started planning my revenge. Not in some crazy way, more like making her regret ever crossing me. I knew she'd try to spin everything, lie her way out and make me look like the bad guy. But I wanted her to feel what I was feeling. I wanted her to know that her lies and cheating couldn't just be swept under the rug. So I started digging into her world, looking for ways to expose her. I contacted her literary agency, got hold of some emails, some texts she'd never delete. I even managed to get a hold of the security footage from the bookstore, thanks to a friend who worked there. That footage would be my ace. I knew I could use it to ruin her reputation if I decided to go that route. But honestly, part of me just wanted her to feel the same pain I was feeling, humiliated, betrayed, and completely exposed. Meanwhile, Jessica kept up her usual bitchy attitude. She told everyone I was a jealous, insecure husband, that I was crazy to think she'd cheat on me. She lied and lied, trying to paint herself as the victim. I could see through it. Her lies only fueled my anger. I knew she was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt myself, but I refused to let her. Every time I saw her dismissive, bitchy smile, I felt more determined to turn the tables. I wanted her to realize she was messing with the wrong person. I wanted her to regret ever messing around with her agent, Mark, or whatever his name was. One night I decided to confront her again just to see if I could get her to admit the truth. I called her and told her I had more evidence, that I knew everything. Her reaction was priceless. She started yelling, calling me crazy, saying I was stalking her, that I was a paranoid lunatic. She even tried to turn it around, saying I was the one cheating or hiding something. Honestly, I could see the desperation in her voice. She knew her lies were crumbling and she was panicking. I just told her to stay away from me, that I was done with her games. That's when I realized I didn't want her to come back, not ever. Her betrayal was too deep, and I'd never look at her the same way again. The worst part is, I still love her, or at least I did. That's what hurts so much. Because underneath the bitchy attitude and all her lies, I saw a woman I thought I knew. But now, I see her as someone who's capable of destroying everything we built. I don't even recognize her anymore. Every little thing about her makes me sick. And that's what I keep thinking. How could someone I love do this to me? How could she lie, cheat, and be so dismissive of my feelings? I've never felt so broken and furious at the same time. I keep telling myself I'll get through this, but right now, I just feel like I'm stuck in this nightmare, trying to breathe through the heartbreak and rage. It's been a couple of weeks since I found out everything, and honestly, I'm still trying to piece myself back together. The house feels emptier than ever. Every corner, every piece of furniture just reminds me of her. Jessica, the woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved. But now it's like I'm living with a stranger, someone I never really knew. The rage has simmered down a bit, but the pain is still there, deep and raw. Every time I think about that footage, about her lips pressed on him in that storage room, I get this cold feeling in my stomach. It's like a part of me died that day. I've started reaching out to some friends and even a counselor. I needed someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't just tell me what I wanted. Here, I needed real advice, and honestly, I needed to get this all out of my system. The counselor told me that I was justified in feeling betrayed, and that I deserved better than someone who would lie and cheat. She told me I was doing the right thing by ending it, and that I needed to focus on myself now, not Jessica. That was hard to hear, but deep down, I knew she was right. I didn't want to be the guy who stayed and kept getting hurt, especially not by someone so manipulative and selfish. I also started planning my next move. I decided I wasn't going to let her ruin my life further. I wanted to expose her, sure, but in a way that would hurt her back, nothing reckless, no messy revenge. Instead, I started gathering all the evidence I had. The emails, the security footage, her texts, anything that could be used to show everyone what kind of person she really was. I wanted her to feel the shame, the humiliation that I had already felt. I wasn't going to let her get away with lying her way out of this. Meanwhile, Jessica kept acting like nothing had happened. She was still bitchy, still dismissive, still pretending she was the victim. I saw through her. I knew she was trying to save her reputation, to spin everything she could. But I also knew she was cracking, her usual bitchy attitude masking a woman who was scared and desperate. Every time she tried to call or text me, I ignored her. I wasn't interested in her apologies or her fake excuses. I just wanted her gone from my life. One night, I finally reached a breaking point. I sat down and wrote her a long message, nothing angry, just honest. I told her I knew everything and I was done. Done with her lies, her cheating, her manipulations. I told her I'd be exposing her in the coming days, and she could either admit the truth or keep digging her own grave. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to be played anymore. I was done being the fool she thought I was. I said I deserved better, that I was finally reclaiming my life, and that I hoped she'd find whatever it was she was searching for, though I didn't hold my breath. Honestly, I feel a strange sense of relief. Not because I'm happy about what happened, but because I finally took control of my life. I've realized I don't need her or her lies or her betrayal. I deserve someone who respects me, someone who values honesty. I know this will hurt for a while. I know I'll still have nights where I lie awake, replaying it all. But I also know I'm stronger than I thought. And I'm finally starting to believe that I can move past this, that I can rebuild from the wreckage she left behind. The pain still lingers, but it's less about her now and more about figuring out who I am without her in my life. It's been a few weeks since I sent that message and started officially moving on. Honestly, I don't recognize myself anymore, but I do feel a strange sense of peace I never thought I'd find after all this mess. The house is still eerily quiet, but I've started filling it with my own things, my hobbies, and even some new friends. Jessica, of course, tried to reach out a couple of times, begging, apologizing, crying, trying to spin her lies again. But I blocked her numbers, cut her out of my life completely. For the first time in a long while, I feel like I've taken back control. Looking back, I realize how deeply I was blind to the toxicity that had been creeping into our marriage. I kept making excuses for her bitchy attitude, for her dismissive behavior, never questioning the possibility that she might be hiding something worse. Now I see it clearly. She was selfish, manipulative, and unfaithful. Her lies, her cheating, those were the real her, not the person I thought I knew. That realization has been hard to swallow, but it's also freeing. It's like I've finally woken up from a nightmare I didn't even realize I was in. What's left now is figuring out who I am without her. I've started therapy, which has helped me process everything. I've learned that I don't have to carry this burden alone, and I don't need her to define who I am anymore. The betrayal cut so deep, but it also forced me to confront what I truly want from life, something I'd lost sight of during those years of pretending everything was perfect. I've realized that I deserve honesty, respect, and someone who genuinely cares about me, not some manipulative person who cheats and lies her way through life. Some days are still hard. I get hit with waves of sadness, anger, and even regret. But I remind myself that staying in this toxic situation wouldn't have been healthy or fair to me. I'm learning to forgive myself for trusting her so blindly and to accept that sometimes people change. Sometimes they reveal who they really are too late. That doesn't mean I failed. It means I was brave enough to see the truth and to take action. Now I look ahead. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know I'm finally ready to move forward, better, stronger, and more aware than I was before. Jessica's betrayal was one of the worst things to happen to me, but it also opened my eyes to what I truly need. I hope anyone reading this going through something similar learns that no matter how deep the betrayal, you can survive it. You can come out the other side better, wiser, and more resilient. The pain fades, the anger diminishes, and in time, so does the bitterness. What remains is the knowledge that I've taken my life back from someone who didn't deserve it. That in itself is the greatest revenge of all.